It is the most magical time of the year, and that means it is the start of another NFL season. This is another edition as well of Mic'd Up here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, Pittsburgh Sports Now, and all throughout the Now family of networks. This show, of course, is presented by Martin Lawn Services. You can contact Doug Martin at the number there behind Mike Vukovcan's head at 412-849-5894. He is Mike Vukovcan. I'm Mike Asti, and we are going to give our NFL predictions for this coming season. We're also going to talk about TJ Watt and that lingering situation that is still potentially ongoing. He's now practiced, certainly appears to be playing, but looking for that extension. How long will this go? Should the Steelers have finalized this already? Do you blame TJ Watt for how this has been handled, and how should this have been handled for both sides? And then it's the topic that never ends, the Big 12 and college football realignment. The Big 12 continues to fight, not want to die without a fight. And that fight right now is moving to expansion as they're looking to add 4 teams. A couple have already applied to be added, Cincinnati, UCF, etc. How that potentially could save, and if that will save the Big 12, how the Big 12 will then look in comparison to the other major conferences, and if they will still be a major conference, and how that will impact West Virginia, who we cover at WV Sports Now and is a member of the Big 12. Does that make it better for them to stay? Should they still get out? And if now they become potentially the only option for the ACC, do want to expand. So, Mike, a lot to cover here on this Thursday morning. A lot going on. Yeah, this is a big news day. It was slow for a couple days. That kind of prompted maybe discussions about Juju and the Milk Crate Challenge, as he gave a topic there with how crazy that was. And then we have now lingered to actual games happening, things moving. This is happening. College football already in full swing, and now the NFL is going to join them. So with the NFL joining them, Mike, I guess we'll kind of start with what we think of this NFL season. The Steelers will start the season on Sunday on the road against the Buffalo Bills. But just in general, your thoughts about this NFL season, any major surprises, any major picks that you want to announce, what you think is going to happen in these divisions, and 4 division winners, 3 wild cards this year, as now there's an extra playoff spot, but certainly a lot of unknown, because every NFL season includes teams that nobody in the world would have predicted that are going to all of a sudden make a dark horse contending run, and other teams everybody thought would win are going to drop off. It is just inevitable. But what are your expectations right now?
That's why I think, the NFL gets a lot of hype, and rightly so. Some people think it's, right, overhype and everything, but the NFL is the best sports league because of you're entering a season, and you can make it's hard. I was going through with my picks. There is so much parity,
right?
And it's not fake parity like in baseball or the NBA or
right.
There's a team that can maybe win a series or 2 in one of those
in those leagues. There's teams that can contend, but only 3 or 4 that really can win a championship.
Exactly. Right. That's the difference, Mike, is that there's some teams that can maybe make win a series. Right. There's very few teams in all those leagues that can really actually contend. That's not the case in the NFL, and that's why and that's why
I've seen it too many times. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's always surprises, and it's because of how many good you have a little rut. It affects your playoff spot, who you're going to play. So I just love the start of the NFL season. College sports is my favorite, but there's so little parity in that sport. It's it has me turned away a little bit, even though I'll still watch it and I still love it. That needs fixed big time, but the NFL doesn't need fixed. Right. As far as my winners go, I don't know if I have. Maybe, I guess one of them will be a surprise. My division, I'm not gonna give any analysis here. You can decipher what I'm getting at here. But division winners, I'm going Kansas City, the Titans, the Browns, and the Patriots.
And the Patriots, so that's a surprise. A lot of people have the Bills, especially after last year.
I'm having Patriots. I think the 2 tight ends they added, I think they're going to be a lot better offensively. I think that team was wrecked last year because of COVID with all the amount of people that sat out.
Yeah.
So I think, and Bill Belichick, he's a winner. He'll find a way to get that team back. He was embarrassed at what happened last year. And my 3 wild cards are the Chargers, the Bills, and your Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay. They're not my Pittsburgh Steelers.
No, I say that. My thing, your Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
But Steelers will be a wild card team. I believe it'll be tough. And I guess the big omission out of there is no Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, we talked about that the other day. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to make it. Not necessarily because they're not a good team, but because of how good the AFC is and the Steelers division in particular. In the NFC, I'm going 49ers, Tampa Bay, Vikings over Green Bay for that division. And finally going to have Dallas Cowboys winning a division. They're always talk and,
right.
More glitz than actual productivity. But I think Mike McCarthy's team, assuming Dak Prescott is healthy,
right.
I think those will be the four. And then the three wild cards, I have Green Bay, the Rams, and a little bit of a surprise. I think it's going to be a good year for the New York Giants. I think Daniel Jones is going to.
Wow. Okay.
I think Daniel Jones is going to develop into a pretty good quarterback. I think he has some weapons around him. And obviously a lot of that's predicated on Saquon Barkley being healthy. But those are my 14 teams in the NFL. We'll see we'll keep this and see what happens.
Yeah, and there's 14 teams that are going to be part of the playoffs this coming season. That's the one thing the NFL has not needed changed. I don't think they needed to change this, but of course you add one more game. They know it's going to be more money. It'll be more revenue for the players to split by more players getting into the postseason. For me, oddly, though, I don't know if it's, OCD or what's going on here. I hate having the odd number. But yeah, 14 teams, 7 in each, so odd number in both, and then overall with the 14. Interesting, though, I do think the Bills are going to win the East. They've been the sexy pick. I'm not saying I'm going to pick them all to go to the Super Bowl. I could see that being derailed. I think the Patriots are going to be good. I think they're going to be better. I think Mac Jones fits Belichick and what they want to do much more than Cam Newton. Cam Newton, even the height of his powers in his MVP days, was never an accurate passer, really relied on his athleticism. I contended he was overrated years ago and got flack for it. Bill Belichick saw that real quick, and of course, him not being vaccinated, he almost ruined some games last year. It probably wasn't as tough of a call for Bill Belichick, especially with Mac Jones winning the job in the preseason. He won the job. Cam was okay. Mac Jones was literally the best rookie in the preseason, if not one of the better quarterbacks by the numbers. I think he'll fit in perfectly, especially with the two tight end set. However, I just don't think they're going to win the division. I think the Bills are too good. I think that'll be more of a wild card for the Patriots. I have the Chiefs as well. The North is pretty tough there. I don't want to go. If this was before the Dobbins injury, I probably would have went Ravens, and then I probably would say the Steelers are a wild card and bump the Browns out. I honestly think this is a crapshoot now between the Browns and Steelers in terms of that division. I'll probably still go Browns, give the Steelers a wild card. Ravens would be a question mark there. And then I'd go Tennessee in the South, but I just hate the way Tennessee plays football. I really don't like watching Tennessee play football. It's an old school style. It really is about the running back. It's very risky. It's not the modern way. Yeah, they have a better quarterback now. Tannehill can be better than some would expect and maybe give him credit for. He has been good last year and the year before, maybe more of a game manager when they were in the AFC title game. But it's almost by default. Jacksonville's not going to do it. The Texans got a complete mess with Deshaun Watson potentially dealing with legal trouble every single day of the week. And then the Colts have just dealt with injuries. If Carson Wentz was healthy all year and they had all the receivers healthy, etc., I would say them. It seems to make sense for them, but you have no confidence in Wentz staying healthy, and then that's just an unknown. So I got to go there.
Tennessee's a
they could fall off. Maybe.
Yeah. Tennessee's a team to watch in that if they get defense,
that's true.
And if Julio Jones can stay healthy,
yeah,
that's a pretty potent 1-2 punch with him and Brown out there.
Right.
Teams aren't going to be able to, and if they do stack the box with Derrick Henry, coming off 2,000 yards, I don't know. I'll take either one of those guys 1-0. Those are pretty good targets for Tannehill. Yeah. But the key is
they have never. I can't remember a time. Yeah.
Yeah. He hasn't stayed healthy the last couple of years, but if he's able to do that this year, that's a pretty scary offense to deal with. And I think they're going to run away with kind of
Yeah,
game.
I mean, based on what I said about the other team, they should
Yeah.
securely win that division. It's hard for me to pick them to go deep, but they're a team that it wouldn't surprise me if they fell off. And it also wouldn't surprise me if they go really deep because of what you mentioned. The talent-wise says they should do it. They've been knocking at the door for a few years. That also could maybe lend itself to falling off if they do deal with injuries, if Julio gets hurt and they go back to what they were last year. But they have not had a receiver as dynamic as Julio Jones ever, really. I mean, so this is a big deal for them to be adding him to that group. Wild cards, I do think the Steelers slide in as a wild card if they don't win the division. As I said, I think the Patriots get another wild card, and I think the other wild card is pretty clear. The Chiefs are going to win the division because they have Patrick Mahomes, the MVP. They're so good. They're loaded all over the place. Even if they don't win a championship or go to the Super Bowl again 3 years in a row, because historically that's so rare, they're still going to win this division. If they don't, it's only one team, and that's the Chargers, and the Chargers seemingly are primed for at least a playoff position. They should be, with how great Herbert was last year. I know he wasn't supposed to play. He only got in there because someone punctured someone with a needle randomly. It was a kind of a surprise, but he got in there, played really well. He was the rookie last year that nobody talked about. He's the sophomore this year that nobody's talking about. And he's the second team in LA. But maybe even how good the Rams could be this year, still the second team. But I think he will certainly help things this year. The Raiders were better than people thought last year, but I think the Chargers are going to be better than them. And then in the NFC, I do agree with Dallas. I actually think Dallas can win the division, especially if everyone's healthy. Semi by default. Their defense is what could hold them back, though. The Washington has a better defense, which is why they won it last year with Chase Young and company, a way better defense. The Cowboys have the better offense. Should be the NFL today, even though defense wins championships still. I'm going to say the Cowboys do it, but wouldn't shock me if all of a sudden they fall off. They'll be talked about every week nonetheless. The Giants thing, you almost convinced me. That's very, very interesting. I do actually like Daniel Jones better than I did a couple years ago, but Washington is still hard to avoid with Chase Young. I do think the Rams win the West. I think Seattle will get a wild card, though. But I think the Rams could make a run to the Super Bowl with Matt Stafford. And if you get him there with all his stats from Detroit, he can go to the Hall of Fame.
No
I mean, if you look at what his stats have already been, now he has a crew finally. I do think Green Bay wins the North despite all the Rodgers drama. But if he starts thinking about retirement and hating it in Green Bay, and he already wants to go to another team, and they're arguing, and that could fall off and all of a sudden be a 5-win team in 2 minutes, because he could, middle of the season, could want to stop and say, I'm going to preserve myself, quote unquote, retire, and then all of a sudden he wants to come back next year. I don't know how anybody can root for him. He's just so unlikable to me, despite being great. So I'm going to have them win the division, though. And then in the South, got to be Tampa, obviously. They're a favorite to go do it again with the whole crew back, even though it does lend to maybe Brady finally falls off the mountain. He wasn't as good in the playoffs last year, and the team picked him up. But I think I have Seattle. It's really probably a toss-up between Washington and the Giants for me for wild cards. And then, I don't know. Maybe I go both. Maybe I go both of them. It's just rough. That'd be weird to have that many teams in the East, but that's a little hard to pick wild cards there. But it'll be interesting.
Yeah,
it's going to be.
See what we're talking about here is we can't pick. And if you ask right now in college football, if you ask to pick who the 4 teams in
I got the playoff ready.
College football playoffs, you can do you can do it like that. That's the difference, and that's what makes the NFL the NFL.
Oh, absolutely. The NFL not only is the most popular league, and anybody who's been saying, oh, the NFL is going to die if this happens, doesn't matter. The NFL has lasted through domestic violence, DUI, national anthem, political issues, everything imaginable. It does not matter. The NFL is the most popular league because of what you said, because there's so much parity, that it is the only sport. And obviously there are some teams that maybe don't have a chance every given year. The Jacksonville Jaguars aren't going to do it. But every fan base, realistically, or most of them, can be told before the season, hey, you don't know, maybe you'd have a chance. And it's not a lie. We've seen it. We've seen the Rams go from 3 wins to a championship. We've seen the Ravens do it. We've seen other teams do it. And by the way, one I forgot about, which I don't think I'll forget about when the season starts, my last wild card, and I think a team that could win the division in the West, that we would behind the Rams in Seattle. I think I got three playoff teams from the West. So take out one of the Giants or Washington. I'm gonna go Arizona. I think Arizona, with Kyler Murray and what they've been doing, regardless of Fitzgerald, they have enough weapons without him and Hopkins. I think that's the team that should be at minimum a wild card, maybe could steal the division from the Rams. That should be the best division in football in the West. So it's rough for games being laid and things like that. Maybe East Coast bias will hurt their coverage, but that division, the 49ers should at least win 6 or 7. I mean, that could be a good division depending on QB situation there, but that should be a legit division.
Yeah, and just to wrap this up here as far as that goes, is when you talked about their fan base, if you're not good in the NFL, it's not because of the system.
Eventually, it's your fault.
It's not because of money, or it's because your management isn't good enough. Whereas in other sports, it's the money in baseball, it's the money in cheating in college football, in college basketball. Seriously, it is.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and in the NBA, it's the a lot of it's the you're going to have your Phoenixes once in a while, but a lot of it is the the three dynasty, the 3-man, whoever started that, the super teams.
Yeah, the big three. But even if you look at even during big three era, teams like the Spurs were still able to contend in a small market. You could even, freaking OKC at one point had a big three with all those draft picks. They kind of ruined it. But yeah, there's more parity in the NBA than say maybe other leagues, but it's not close to the NFL level. And again, you can have leagues where there's contenders. There are a lot of contenders that can make noise, maybe even go to a conference finals. But it really gets down to, because even in the NBA, there's teams that are good, that are fun to watch, that can be entertaining, they can get to a conference finals. But everyone's already talking about Lakers Nets already for the NBA finals. We haven't even rolled the basketballs out yet. So, and the NHL, we've seen great players on great teams, etc. We've seen loaded teams. The Penguins have been blessed to have Crosby and Malkin. That's a big advantage. There's parity there. There's a lot of teams that can steal series. We've seen goalies steal series. So that's more parity maybe than other leagues, but nothing still is the NFL, because we've just seen last to first so many times, and every team really does have a chance, or at least a punter's chance. And generally speaking, there's something that you messed up on at some point if it is not getting done. The Browns for 20 years, Jacksonville right now, Detroit. It's a little bit your fault in management. You have players. I'm sitting in the Hall of Fame looking at Calvin Johnson getting inducted, Matt Stafford watching him, and talking about Barry Sanders and thinking, man, it's like 2 playoff wins in 35 years. That's got to be your fault at some point here.
Exactly.
So that's why the NFL is so great, though, and the ratings are going to be there. Probably record-setting again. Every game, probably record-setting. And I'll throw this out there, by the way, as we segue to some Steelers talk with TJ Watt, who's really NFL talk. He's the talk of the league right now for what's going on there. I do think Bills beat the Steelers in week 1. I do think it's not going to be a blowout. I think it'll be a close game, but I do have Buffalo winning that week 1 game to kick off the season. The Steelers' schedule is brutal early on. I do think they're still going to get a playoff spot because there's extra ones and they have talent, but it might be rough early on, and that might be a concern in the conversation. I do have the Bills winning that one. But Mike, the topic that just also won't go away, and it's off the field, but the NFL churns year-round on and off the field. That's why they're so popular with conversations. TJ Watt looking for that contract extension. Maybe it'll be announced before we even post the show, but hypothetically right now it's not there. He's practicing. Appears he's going to play. It appears he's not going to be sitting out games like some maybe were concerned for a while, since he's not practiced for a while, not played preseason games. But it's always an unknown until he actually signs pen to paper, and obviously wants to cash in, clearly doesn't want to give hometown discount, or it appears that way. He wants to cash in. Hey, no hating on him. Myles Garrett got paid by the Browns. Others similar to him have got paid. Runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year. Some thought he should have won it. Aaron Donald's been paid. Number one, should the Steelers have got this done by now? Are you concerned that it's not done yet? And who do you blame for this scenario dragging on? TJ Watt, the player, or the team?
I actually can't answer that last question just because I see it. I see it.
I could see it both ways too.
Yeah. I can make an argument for both. I understand fully what TJ Watt's coming from. Right. Considering the injuries his brother has gone through.
Yeah.
You see it every year. This is going to be his biggest contract of his career.
Yeah.
After this, it just goes down from here. It's not gonna.
Could still have another big one, but it wouldn't be like this.
Right. Yeah. He'll get another contract, but this is his max contract. Right. And he's done everything on the field, everything off the field to
There's
deserve
no real
it.
great challenge with him. He's a team leader. He's quiet. He's great on the field. He's great in the locker room.
And he gets
very
it done.
Nice.
He gets it done. He's respected by his teammates, and he's done it from day one. There's not been any drama with the guy.
Sure.
And and he knows his importance to the team, and he
Right.
knows other players that the Steelers have paid. He knows what Ben did as far as his contract. It's his time to get paid, and I think the Steelers realize that too. They're
Right.
hung up now after being in salary cap hell for
Yeah.
so many years as far as owing money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's who's going to blink on the guaranteed money. That's what it's about. I think they
It's
have
always about
everything.
guaranteed money. Yep.
Yeah, I guarantee. I'm not going to guarantee, but I would be safe to say that I bet you they have the terms. I bet you they have the total amount of money.
Probably.
It's all about how much are we going to guarantee
Years.
and
Right.
Steelers don't want to go to $100 million.
That's the rumor always, that he wants to go to 100.
Yeah,
right.
and he wants it apparently. So although he does have a year left on his contract, if I'm his agent, there's no way in hell I'm letting him play against the Bills.
Yeah. I hear
you. I just say, sorry. It sucks. We don't want to do this. This is not, we're about football. However, it's time to get paid. And I hope the Steelers would understand that. I think it would be a really bad move for him career-wise to go on that field against the Bills if he doesn't have a contract signed. Sit out. I know people are going to make comparisons to other people and letting the team down. You still have a year left and blah, blah, blah. Sorry. I don't play if I'm him. And I think the Steelers in some ways would understand it.
And there are two main reasons why TJ Watt shouldn't play without a contract extension. Okay. Number one being Ryan Shazier. That's the example. It's a former Steeler. That's the perfect example. Ryan Shazier, a great player, was on not Hall of Fame pace. He's not what TJ Watt's been doing, of course, but he was a great player, eventually clearly going to cash in with a big contract. Blink of an eye, career is over. Never played again. No one expected it. And he wasn't holding out or anything, but he didn't get to cash in because of that. You are taking a tremendous risk. The other reason is NFL contracts are not guaranteed. This is not Major League Baseball. Things are not guaranteed for you. So again, I do think his value is right now at its peak. He's going to cash in. If anyone's going to get 100 mil, it's going to be him. And as you said, I think the problem is, and what some fans aren't realizing here, if they just want to blame TJ Watt, for example, and maybe they would start if he would miss games, even though I don't think he would do that because he is such a football first guy and believes this team is special. This is bad timing for this. But if there's anyone you're going to pay, it's TJ. If they don't give TJ the money and then somehow he's not back or he does miss games or he ends up unhappy, they are sending a message not just to the Steelers, but to the entire NFL. They are against paying. They are basically going to go cheap. They are operating as a small market. He has done everything on the field to record-setting numbers in terms of being on pace to be the sack leader. Now, again, it's hard to compare eras on who's the best ever, but he's done everything he can to this point. He's a team leader. Everyone loves him in the locker room. Everyone in the media, fans, they all love him. He's marketable, jerseys, posters everywhere. He doesn't get into trouble. There's nothing even of a bad tweet that anyone could mention. He's done nothing wrong. And he comes from the leadership probably of his older brother and even Derek Watt being in the NFL, his family. So maybe he was able to have it be perfect for him because he came from that lineage and had that mentorship from JJ. But I'm sure JJ's been in his ear, Mike, and you alluded to this. I'm sure JJ's been in his ear saying maybe to what the fans don't want, maybe trying to convince him, hey, you got to be selfish here. You got to take care of yourself. I have got hurt all over my career.
All over the place.
JJ Watt is a Hall of Famer. He's a multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year. It's too bad his team's not been good enough to go far. Maybe he's another reason why the Cardinals will do it this year. He finally has a chance there. But he could even have been more. He could have been Lawrence Taylor, but unfortunately he's a step below because of the injuries. It really was because of the injuries. He almost dragged a Texan team to a conference title game pretty much on his back. He was so good in his prime, but he's a shell of himself now. He was a shell of himself for years because of the injuries. And again, his value is so high with TJ Watt that if he didn't play this entire year, hypothetically, a team would still come out next year and offer him pretty much whatever he wanted. There'd be a team out there that would offer him the $100 million because he's so good. He's still so very, very young. All he does by playing is risk injury. And then, unfortunately, Mike, the way it works in the NFL, as much as the Steelers say, you're good, we're going to do it, blah, blah, blah. If you go out there and play against the Bills, it appears he is, but if he goes out there and plays against the Bills and gets hurt, seriously hurt, you know what the Steelers are going to do? They'll do what they did with Shazier. They'll say, we'll take care of your health care for a couple years, keep you on the roster. Yeah. But the $100 million is gone. The $50 million is gone. The $20 million is gone.
And that's why I was surprised actually yesterday seeing pictures from the Steelers. Ed Thompson our photographer had some good ones.
Right.
It's raining over there.
It was bad weather-wise.
Yeah, they were practicing in a continual rain. I don't know, man.
I mean, obviously,
one
I guess
slip of the
he had something on his chest, like he was like a Terminator. I don't know what was going on. He was.
Yeah, I don't know. That's I would think. There's 2 more days of practice. Saturday will obviously be a travel day here. If it doesn't get done in one of these first 2 days, it'll be an interesting weekend. I'll tell you that.
No, and I do think he would play, but again, I don't think he should. If he doesn't play, if he sits out 3-4 weeks, if this has happened in the NFL before, by the way, if he sits out and they start losing games, maybe they would call him and say, we'll give it to you. That happened way back for historical context in the middle of the Cowboys dynasty. Emmitt Smith said, you're paying him all this money. I feel I'm better. I want it. And he literally didn't play for 2 or 3 weeks. And then Jerry Jones had to call him and say, well, we still want to win, so we're going to have to do what you want. I don't know if that's going to happen. The Steelers do have the rule. They don't do that. Once the season kicks off, it doesn't matter whether you're Jesus Christ or you're the worst player. They are not going to negotiate with you. Of course, there's been conversation if that should be amended, because this appears to be a guy that if you're going to set a precedent, maybe you would for him. If they do this and would negotiate week 2, 3, middle of the season, it would, I'm sure, send other agents, other players to call them middle of the season in future negotiation and say, you clearly can negotiate middle of the season now. They don't want to set that precedent. But you know what they should have done if they didn't want to set that precedent? They should have got this done a while ago, because here's the problem. They can't hide behind what they could have hidden behind 2 years ago. They have cap space. Ben Roethlisberger didn't really make it nice for them the other day when he said, you got to pay TJ. He literally also said, I took less money to give it to TJ. Yeah. Why are you not giving it to TJ? So what are they doing? Sitting on the money? Are they going to wait to give it to Juju next year, which would be insane? So if you're going to pay it, it's to TJ. And it's weird it hasn't got done, because Art Rooney II even said in June he was the number 1 priority. The only thing I would defend the Steelers on, which is why maybe it hasn't got done, and clearly he wants to be the highest paid, but maybe if somehow, and it's all about the guarantee, because that's the only money that you get guaranteed in NFL contracts, unlike other leagues, but maybe he wants to go 100 million beyond. Maybe he wants 120. Maybe he wants 110. We don't know exactly what he wants. It's just an estimate. If he wants to go where he's really breaking the bank and setting records at 120, I then could see the Steelers saying maybe you're getting a little too money hungry. But again, he didn't set the market. He only wants the market value. It's the same thing that anybody in any job, any walk of life, anyone watching the show or listening, if you feel like you have a job, you're paid for your job, somebody else has the same job, you think they're worse than you, they're getting paid a lot more money now. Obviously, you're going to be bitter and want to be at that level, if not more. And also, if you have a job, you're not getting paid enough, you feel disrespected by your boss, and you see another job call you and say, we'll pay you more to do the same thing, you're going to take that job. So that is where we could go if he doesn't get the extension through the season. If I'm him,
I think all this, I think in the end, it's going to happen.
I do agree.
I just find it very hard to believe this. I just don't think the Steelers want to have the drama of,
Yeah, this will be drama.
Lord knows. Yeah, Lord knows this would equal or surpass all the Antonio Brown crap from the few years
ago. I don't think he's going to act like that, but yeah.
No, I don't mean that, but I'm talking about the coverage and then the everyday talk and people in the locker. Just with Mike Pye, they don't want that. They don't need that. And I just think somehow before Saturday, before they take off for Buffalo, this gets done. And I think TJ. Last thing I'm going to say about this is I think TJ Watt showed them a little bit yesterday by going on the field, and he made a move, and he broke his stance a little bit as far as not practicing until
which he didn't have to do. A lot of other players wouldn't have done that.
Right, exactly. I think he threw it out there that says, okay, I'm going to play. I believe we're going to get this done. So let's get it done. I'm going to go on the field.
Right.
I'm going to be ready. And now it's on their court. So I think I'd be stunned if by Saturday this thing isn't done.
Yeah, I do think it's going to get done as well. I've always thought it's going to get done. It'll be interesting if they get to the 100 or what the actual money figure is, because again, I agree. They probably have the years. They probably have everything else mapped out. None of that matters. His current contract doesn't matter. He wants the guarantee so that if he goes out there any given Sunday and breaks his leg, suffers a spinal injury, something happens, he's taken care of and you can't take that money away from him. He wants that guarantee, which he deserved. He's put in the work. Hey, it's you might be wasting it. Nobody knows. Shazier, they thought they'd have more years out of, but this is the NFL today. I mean, players that he feels he's better than are getting that guarantee. I don't blame him for wanting it. And again, I would advise him not to play until you get it, even if that means sitting out the year, because his value would still be what it is, even if he would sit out the year. But that would, of course, with Stephon Tuitt being out as well, and that an unknown, that would cripple the Steelers probably and take them out of the playoffs if that would occur. But we will see. I would expect it as well. This will be an interesting situation if somehow it gets into the week one and the ball's kicked off and he does not have a contract, even if he's out there, because if he's out there, his agent would be, man, I wouldn't be watching the games. I would be nervous that entire time, but he should learn from his brother that maybe it's best not to play. With the Steelers cap space, they're going to look bad if he doesn't have that contract. For me, I think the Steelers would be the ones looking bad. Mike Tomlin's comments, though, I'll leave you with this. Mike Tomlin's comments were interesting to me when he was asked about the captain situation. And he basically just, because TJ was a captain last year, why would he not be now? Last year was co with Cam. You could easily do co again. Why would you just give it to Cam defensively? And he basically said, well, the players voted. So I don't know if he's saying the players a little bit mad at TJ because he's not playing and they care about the field. You're seeing tweets. They respect his money. Obviously, they're not going to talk about a teammate's money. But it appears Tom was maybe a little frustrated with TJ more than the team, which I think is a little crappy for him to say it that way because, again, it shouldn't have been this way. They have the money.
Right.
TJ deserves it if anyone does. But we are going to close up shop with the topic that basically starts, finishes, and closes up shop seemingly every talk show around, and it is conference realignment in college football as we're in the middle of a college football season still talking about this. But the Big 12 in particular, they don't want to die. They're now looking to expand. This would be the only way to save things for them. You're seeing programs like Cincinnati, who's, UCF, who has their fake national title from years ago, but it's going to be harder with a harder schedule, you'd imagine, for them. They certainly bring a lot media and student body and money-wise. We'll see what they do competitive-wise with potentially a tougher schedule. What do you and others, what are your thoughts about this? Does this make the Big 12 more of a viable major conference for you? I actually saw some analytical numbers that said it would be the worst of the Power Five, but only slightly below the Pac-12 based on actual competitiveness and all that. So we'll see if that continues or what that would be. Does this save the Big 12? And then a school like West Virginia that we cover at WV Sports Now. Do you now think they're okay in the Big 12 or they should still be calling the ACC to beg to get in there?
Well, I think as far as the conference, I think it depends on what you're talking about as far as which sport. I think this makes, despite, losing Texas and Oklahoma, I think it's a better basketball conference.
Right.
I think Houston, with what Sampson's done down there, Cincinnati's always at least for many years, they were a really good team.
They're a tournament team usually. Yeah.
Yeah. Central Florida, they're below average. Dawkins is okay. And then BYU, they're a competitive team out there. Remains to be seen how their style and everything would translate to the Big 12. But I don't think it hurts I don't think it hurts the basketball. I think it actually
makes it better. Right.
Makes it better. Football is a different case.
That's what it's all about, though. It's all
right.
about
Exactly.
football.
Yeah. Cincinnati is, I think, is just a product of, them being a top 10 team's a joke.
Schedule wise, it's similar to
yeah.
UC.
They're, for people to make that case, it's just, stupidity. To think they're one of the top 10 best teams in the country, and we're going to find out. Luke Fickell. The only thing might do though is keep their head coach around, Luke Fickell, which
right.
I don't know. I think they're on par with the Pac-12. I think they have a chance to develop.
Yeah, BYU's been a bowl team.
Yeah, I think BYU.
Houston's entertaining. It's weird that Holgorsen hasn't been able to win there. Honestly, there was a joke actually that somebody made in our group chat about we got to talk about Holgorsen returning to the Big 12, playing West Virginia potentially. He might not make it there because he needs to win some games to get in the conference. But who knows?
It's going to put a lot of pressure on teams like Oklahoma State, West Virginia, Texas Tech, teams like that to get better in football.
Yeah.
I will say this though, if West Virginia stays in the conference and nobody plucks them and, they're okay with staying there, I think this has the chance to make West Virginia a powerful program.
They could be the elite program.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In basketball and football, I think I think they very well could be the cream of the crop in basketball. They'll obviously still have to go through Kansas, but I think it could do well for them in football. It's all about whether or not those teams develop. And the Holgorsen thing will be funny. That'll him returning to Morgantown if that happens. We'll see, though. I don't know. I don't think we've said we're talking about this today.
Yeah,
and then a year from now, who knows, or even 6 months from now, what other teams might leave, what teams.
And Mike,
right now, I don't think it's as bad.
Right.
I think if you had I think they targeted 4 pretty good programs to try to get, and now it's about whether or not they develop and take the next step to become a really good Power 5 team. Because in the end, SEC is going to still rule, but it doesn't mean the Big 12 can't be good. They're not going to be great, I don't think, but I don't think they'll be as bad as some people think.
The problem with losing Oklahoma and Texas, not only are they elite brands, they bring money, they'll increase your TV deal revenue. They are brands, even if they aren't good, for example. It's the same thing with Florida State and Miami. Clemson's the only elite team in the ACC, but they're elite brands. So even if they're not good, they're going to bring money. They're going to bring fans, going to help with deals. USC does that in the Pac-12. That's a major advantage there. Even if they're not good, they're freaking USC. So Texas and Oklahoma are that. There's no team in the Big 12 that now would be that could be that brand even without winning. West Virginia could have the door open for them. Certainly, if you're talking about athletic program-wise, I mean, it's the top 15 winningest football program ever. It has multiple Final Fours in basketball. Bug Hubbins is still there. That's a rare program in the country that brings it potentially in 2 sports, unless football totally goes off the rails right now. If they can keep climbing somehow and basketball can keep being what it is, I mean, maybe it would really turn into a basketball school if football doesn't pick it up, because they would be in one of the better conferences in the country. And if you're in the conference title game with a 900-win Hall of Fame head coach, then maybe you could really flip it. But yeah, basketball-wise, it has a chance to be a great conference, certainly could be, and maybe they have the door open for them. But in terms of the next TV deal, the money revenue split, I think it's going to be less. It does have a chance to be a Power 5. I think a lot of this hinges, and if I'm West Virginia, I would want to know one answer. And I don't think we're going to get to know it yet, which is why we may not know their answer for years. We could easily have a situation, Mike, where they right now say tomorrow, we're cool with this. As you mentioned, this is the only way to save the Big 12. These 4 teams, if you're going to add teams that weren't already in major conferences and it was easier to add them, these are the 4 to add. We'll see what Cincinnati and UCF can do playing with the big boys, but some bring money. They at least bring some interest and now more of a fan base because of what they've done with winning. BYU has a whole media marketing section of the country. And then, of course, Houston brings a very large media market. That'll help you money-wise. Yeah, and that's, even if they're not winning, that's at least entertaining football. So these are the 4 to bring. However, I got to know, and this is not known. We won't know this probably for a while. It's probably delayed knowing this. When the college football playoff expands, They've said they are going to take conference championships from the Power Five as a big deal to them. And then, of course, Notre Dame is still an unknown of what's going to happen with them. If they remain an independent right now, they couldn't be beyond the 5th seed. But you're going to have to be a conference champion of a major Power Five to be a top 4 seed. That is basically the current format. If that's the case, does that include the Big 12 as a major conference in their eyes? If it's yes, then what you're saying could be true. West Virginia could sit there and say, okay, we win this conference. We got a chance at a top 4 seed. We could be the powerhouse here. Maybe this could be a rare blessing in disguise that could take that program from being, similar to Pitt, where the major program, there's history there, they're competitive, but they're never going to be Alabama. Maybe they could all of a sudden propel. They wouldn't be Alabama, but they could have an inside track at winning the conference every year, them or Oklahoma State, if they really could do that. And maybe UCF fans would argue they're going to step up, but I don't think so. So that could happen. But if the answer is no, where they're going to say, well, it's a good conference, it's competitive, it's fun, but we can't guarantee that for you as a top 4 because we're going to treat you like the AAC last year because there's no elite programs there. You're not going to bring what Oklahoma, Ohio State, Bama, etc. would bring. Then I would say, got to get out of there. Got to get out of there. Because then you'd have to be undefeated to get impressive enough for them to rank you in a positive spot. If you're way down there, it's going to be hard. Then you need the money for even the New Year's Day Bowl games to be ranked higher. So that's a big question that we don't know, which is why that we're talking about this now. It's very possible that West Virginia says, we're fine with this. This is now a new Big 12. We're going to stay and be nice. And then in 2 to 3 years, when Oklahoma and Texas leave, they all of a sudden say, you know what? We changed our mind. We're going to have to go to the ACC. They want us now. We're going to go. Who knows? And as things change all the time, 10 years ago, the ACC didn't want West Virginia because of academics. Then a few years later, they took Louisville, who is ranked the exact same in academics. So things are shifting. What conferences want, what it's all about, and the ACC, even in 2 years from now, could be more apt to West Virginia, who, as I said off the air, Mike, if West Virginia wants in the ACC, and this is what I would do, because I think it'd be better for them overall, that because UCF, Cincinnati in particular, are now looking to be in the Big 12, Notre Dame does not want to be full-time, UConn, they're just not as good of a program as West Virginia, even though they bring that media market, but they already have New England. I would now call the ACC and say, if you want a new TV deal, you need to expand. All these programs would want us because of rivals and what we would do attendance-wise and make these games interesting. We're a good athletic program. I get the academics aren't there, but you have almost no other choice now. There's no, I mean, they're by far the best team available if you're already taking Cincinnati and UCF out of the equation for the Big 12. So this actually could increase their positioning to join the ACC and being attractive to them.
Yeah, I think we said this before. There's still more to happen. This is where things sit right now. The 2023 and 2024 are a long time off. Right. They're probably already looking for teams if they do want to expand. It would be nice if they were to get one more major football program. But as far as whether or not how this would work out, if this is what they go with, it's all about the commitment that these teams that they're bringing in have for football. Central Florida needs to keep. That's a huge market. Orlando.
Yeah, it is.
It's a huge school. The nice thing that they're doing is you're going to 4 different parts of the country as far as plucking teams. Houston is, like I said, they're a top 5 TV market.
Huggins can't like that though. He's a little mad.
No, but it's all about, can those programs take a next step? Can Cincinnati maintain if they do this? Same thing with Houston. Is Holgerson good enough to make that team make that program better? Those are the questions. If those things do happen, they'll be good enough football wise. They're not nobody's ever going to be the SEC or the upper half of the Big Ten, because I think the bottom, the middle to bottom is still very overrated.
Oh, sure. I think that's the advantage.
Those teams need to get better. Programs need to. It means commitments. It means money from donors and all that stuff. Fans need to show up for games, and We'll see. I don't think it's as bad as people thought when Oklahoma and Texas originally left. I think this has helped them a little bit, but I don't think their work's done yet.
No, the work is definitely not done. The decisions are not done. That could all change in a blink of an eye. And yeah, the upper half of the Big Ten, most of the SEC, certainly what they would bring money-wise and brand-wise and competitiveness, it's never going to be beat by any of these other conferences, likely even including the ACC, despite what's going on with Clemson. They're always going to have Clemson, but unless Miami and Florida State would be back to what they were 10 years ago, then they're always going to be looking at those two conferences as well. So there might be a door opening for the Big 12 to, at minimum, be on par with the Pac-12, maybe even be better. If these they do have, it would bring media market-wise, and the TV deal would be a big deal, though. It would be interesting to what the TV deal would be, how they would split it, and what that would be for a program like West Virginia, because you're not bringing the brand names other conferences would have. You don't have the Oklahoma and Texas. You might not have a Fox deal. See what it would be. That would be a big deal. You're not going to match the SEC having their relationship being in bed with ESPN, for crying out loud. But what will be the deal? And then what would it be in comparison with the ACC? That'll be all the thoughts, all the conversations. We will see. It's a topic that'll never end, will never die. And we don't know. But that's where it is right now. Of course, the NFL season kicking off tonight, kicking off for the Steelers this Sunday. College football continues despite all of this unknown for the future. And likely Oklahoma is going to keep getting in the playoff and beating up on things until things finish. But this should be motivation for these other teams to maybe try to show them something in these games earlier in this year. We will see, though. But for Mike Vukovcan, I'm Mike Asti here, as this has been another edition of Mic'd Up here, presented by Martin Lawn Services, 412-849-5894. Are you ready for some football? Because it is football across